Hi everyone, my name is Maria Dukova, and today we're going to talk about the Democracy in Theory by Huntington. So, let's first talk about the Huntington, who he was. Samuel Phillips Huntington, he is American political scientist, consulted to various U.S. government agencies, and an important political commentator in national debates of the United States foreign policy in the late 20th and early 21st century. Samuel Phillips Huntington was the Albert J. Weatherhead Professor in the Harvard Department of the Government and one of the 20th century's most influential and controversial political scientists. The bulk of Huntington's career was spent teaching and writing at Harvard, interspersed with foils into national, state, and local politics. Huntington wrote or edited 17 books and produced close to 100 scholarly articles. He is among the most frequently cited social scientists of the past century and made significant contributions in the field of civil-military relations, modernization, and democratization theory, American political thought, and international relations. So let's talk about his book, The Third Wave of Democracy. In political science, the three waves of democracy and measure struggles of democracy which have occurred in history. Although the term appears at least as early as 1887, it was popularized by Samuel Huntington in his article published in the Journal of Democracy and further expounded in his 1991 book, The Third Wave, Democratization in the Late 20th Century. Democratization's wave have been linked to the sudden shifts in the distribution of power among the great powers, which creates openings and incentives to introduce sweeping domestic reforms. So, Huntington describes three waves. The first wave is like a slow wave of the 19th century, a second wave after the World War II, and a third wave beginning in the mid-1970s in South Europe, followed by Latin America and Asia. Though his book does not discuss the collapse of the Soviet bloc, a number of scholars have taken the third wave to include the democratic transition of 1989 and 1991. Other scholars, such as Sheva Gunitsky of University in Toronto, have referred to 13 waves from the 18th century to the Arab Spring, like 2011-2012. In his 1991 book, The Third Wave, Huntington defined the democratic wave as a group of transitions from non-democratic to democratic regimes that occurs within a specified period of time and that significantly outnumber transitions in the opposite directions during the period of time. Mainwaring and Aníbal Pérez-Linen offer a similar definition: any historic period during which there is a sustainable and significant increase in the promotion of competitive regimes. So let's talk closely about the first wave. The first wave of democracy started 1826 and began to 1926. Began in the early 19th century when suffrage was granted to the majority of white males in the United States, like Jacksonian democracy. Then came to France, Britain, Canada, Australia, Italy, and Argentina, and a few others before 90s. It peaked after the breakup of the Russian, German, Austrian, and Ottoman empires in 1918. The first wave saw 29 democracies in the world. Reversal began in 1922 when Benito Mussolini rose to power in Italy. The collapse primarily hit newly formed democracies, which could not stand against the aggressions, rise of expansionists, communists, fascist, and militaristic authoritarian or totalitarian movements, which systematically rejected democracy. The nadir of the first wave came in 1942 when the number of democracy in the world stopped to mere 12. So then we had a second wave of democracy. It began following the Allied victory in the World War II and increased nearly 20 years later in 1962 with 36 recognized democracies in the world. The second wave ebbed as well all the points, and the total number dropped to 30 democracies between 1962 and the mid-1970s. But the flat line would not last for long, as the third wave was about the surge in a way no one had ever seen. Scholars have noted that the appearance of wave of democracy largely disappears when women's struggles suffrage is taken into account. Moreover, some countries change their positions quite dramatically, like Switzerland, which is typically included as part of the first wave, did not grant women the right to vote until 1971. And then we have a third wave of democracy. Actually, it began in 1974, Carnetarian Revolution in Portugal, and Spanish tradition to democracy in late 1970s, with the historic democratic transitions in Latin America in the 80s. Asia-Pacific countries, Philippines, South Korea, and Taiwan from 1986 to 1988. Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and Sub-Saharan Africa beginning in 1989. The expansion of democracy in some regions was stunning. In Latin America, only Colombia, Costa Rica, and Venezuela were democratic by 1978, and only Cuba and Haiti remained authoritarian by 1995, when the wave had swept across 20 countries. Huntington points out that 3/4 of the new democracies were Roman Catholics. Most Protestant countries already were democratic. He emphasized the Vatican Council of 1962, which turned to Catholic Church from defenders and the old established order into an opponent totalitarianism. Countries undergrounding of having undergone a transition of democratic during a wave are sometimes subject to democratic blacksiding. Political scientists and theorists believe that the third wave has created and will soon begin to add, just as its predecessors did not in the first and second wave. In the period immediately following the onset of the War on Terror after September 11, 2001, attacks on the United States, some backsliding ensued. How significant or for lasting this erosion in remains a subject of debate. Third wave continues, including Portugal, Spain, South Korea, and Taiwan have become fully consolidated democracies rather than blacksliding. As of 2020, they even have stronger democracies than many counterparts with much longer historical as democratic countries. So that's all for today. Have a good day and bye!